There is a lot of hype in our world today around giving and being of service to others, doing charity work. And it is becoming more and more prevalent in the business world because many companies want to appear as though they are leaders and they are running their businesses in an exemplary way. But this can often lead to much glamorization around giving, which could actually taint the giving. There are also many New Age teachers who are teaching their students to give because this will actually result in attracting more into their lives. And all of this is being packaged as spirituality. I do not want you to fall into these traps where you could get stuck only at one level when you're giving and helping and serving others. I want you to progress spiritually and to evolve consciously. And giving, doing charity work, being of service to humanity and helping are all portals to your spiritual evolution. And this is why all religions, all scriptures emphasize charity. But you will not evolve simply and merely by giving, but by how you give. And I will share with you how to give so you don't make mistakes and end up devolving. And I'm going to do so by making reference to the Holy Bible as well as to the ancient texts in India called the Upanishads. And for those of you with different religious backgrounds, please note this is not a religion. This is a guide. Upanishads are simply a guide to how to live right. It is a way of life to help you to progress spiritually and contribute and live a good life in society. I have been taught by my spiritual gurus, and I've been blessed to have some very good ones, teachers, that according to the Upanishads, when you give, one of the criteria in how to give is that you must give with sincerity. You see, when you do so, you will give not just to satisfy your need to give so that you can feel good about yourself, but you will also give according to the receiver's needs. In other words, give to add value to people's lives. Do not give what is not useful to you and what you know will not be useful to them. Otherwise, this will end up becoming like a sin. In the Upanishads, there's a great example of this, in that there is this young boy. His name was Nachiketa, and he was actually an evolved soul, even though he was so young. He saw his father giving, doing charity work, but in the wrong way. His father was giving away old cows to poor people, knowing full well that these old cows will not be useful to them. In the same way, those old cows were not useful to him. He was performing charity work, thinking if he did that, he is going to end up in heaven. What he did not understand and realize that it is not the act of doing good, not the act of giving charity, means that he's going to get to heaven. But actually, what you infuse that charity with, that act of giving, is with good intention and with sincerity. When the act is pure in this way, it is truthful, and then it becomes heaven worthy. Then you might have a chance of making it to heaven. How Nachiketa's father was giving was actually impure, because what he was giving was going to end up being a burden to those poor people. Now, not are they burdened by not having, they are now burdened even further because what they have to figure out now, how am I going to dispose of these old cows that we can't use? And back in those days, of course, everybody was a vegetarian, so they can't even kill the cows and say they're going to eat it. He did not add to his spiritual bank account. In fact, what Nachiketa's father did was end up being regressing spiritually. So, what he ended up doing also is he wasted his time and energy in giving, and he wasted the people's time also, because now they have to exert time and energy and, to try to figure out how to dispose of that which they do not need, which is going to be of no benefit to them. You see, this type of giving is actually very insulting to receivers by giving them the worst of what you have. That has no value to the receiver. And this is a big mistake many of us can make when giving. Really, how many of us do that and then we say, you know what, those people should be very grateful that they even got something. Christmas time comes around, what do? We give them an ugly sweater and we want them to be grateful for that gift, right? Very simple, but it's true. We give them something ugly and we say, you know what? Let them feel grateful that they even got a gift, that I thought about them to give them something for Christmas. We give them a scratched non-stick pan that we know sticks and oozes toxins into our food. So what we do? We go and we give it to the poor and we say, you know what? Let them be grateful they have a pan that they could cook their eggs in or whatever. If you want to progress spiritually, give the best you can, but never intentionally give the worst. Give to add dignity to a person's life and never let them feel as though they're a beggar. Never let them run after you and try to convince you that they need help. Give to always improve a human being's life, to add some value and benefit. When you give in these ways with sincerity, it means you are giving away something of value to you. And when you give something of value away, what happens? Your attachment to things end up being reduced. It is your attachments that hold you back from evolving spiritually. When you give away sincerely, you are letting go freely. And the freer you give, the happier you become, the more peaceful you are within yourself. When you give something sincerely, both you and the receiver must benefit. Give to help improve their life. When you give sincerely, you are giving to help improve their lives. You become more detached and you're going to progress spiritually. So, in other words, it ends up being a win-win situation. When you give sincerely, what ends up happening is that will flow naturally and spontaneously out of you as your very nature. Do not give with insincere feelings. That's the next criteria. So not only are you to give with sincerity, the Upanishads now emphasize the need to give, but do not give with insincere feelings. And let me share a little personal story with you. There is this person who has a great liking for me, this lady. She just likes me. She thinks I treat her well. And she knows that I wrote this book, Insight's a Life Companion. And she keeps hinting in a way that she wants a copy. She doesn't come out totally and says it. And she's not the type who shops online. So the only way she can really get a copy if somebody gives it to her. So I thought, okay, maybe I should give her a copy of my book. But then the naughty mind comes in and says, you know, Sandra, she could hardly speak English very well. I don't think she can read English too well. That would be like wasting my book to give it to someone like that. And then I sat and I thought, so I want to give it to her. I said, maybe I can give it to her for Christmas. But it was kind of a half-hearted giving. And I stopped and I said, Sandra, if you're going to give something away like that half-heartedly, it's best not to give. So I sat and I thought about it and I said, you know what? This lady just wants this book because it's a little piece of me that she likes. And I think she really wants it, to have it, to feel a warmth that she has something from me that I actually wrote, that she knows the author. So I said, you know what? Let me fulfill her desire. It is a beautiful thing to fulfill somebody's desire. if it is something that would not ruin their lives. So I know that much. And then I thought to myself, you know what? She's going through a very difficult time. And just the presence of that from me to her might bring her some level of comfort. And who knows, she might actually flip open the book, land on a page, understand one sentence that can make a profound difference in her life. Or maybe she can even give it away. So when I thought about this and came to that realization, I said, you know what? I'm going to give her my book. I'm going to give it to her, and I'm in a state of joy to add something to her life. So I know when I give to her, I'm giving her the book with joy in my heart, and she is going to be a joyful receiver also, because it will bring something good into her life. You see, if you give with an insincere heart, the receiver may or may not benefit, depending upon what you give. But you are definitely not benefiting, because it is like you are giving with one hand and then using your other hand to snatch it back, which is what I would have done originally. And that holds you back. If I were giving it with a heavy heart, thinking it's a waste of my book, that would put me into the trap of insincerity. But giving it freely and joyfully to her, we both end up benefiting. She got something she desired and wanted that is good and purposeful, and I'm giving joyfully. So I end up progressing. In 2 Corinthians of the Bible, I want to share with you what the Bible says about giving. So bear with me. I'm going to read it here from the Bible. It says, every man according as he purposeth in his heart, so let him give, not grudgingly or of necessity, for God loveth a cheerful giver. So, the Upanishads go on now to say, give with humility. All giving must be preceded by, accompanied with, and followed by joy, to keep the presence of God, light, love, and freedom in your giving. All giving is from God through you. You are merely an instrument, so don't go about creating self-importance. Look at what I did. I gave. Don't do that in your giving. And when you give, never reproach somebody for not being grateful. That is none of your business. It is a blessing to be in a position of instrument to give. So give with humility, remembering that God is doing the giving through you. The Upanishads continue to say that when you're giving, make sure you give plenty and abundantly. And the Holy Bible says, give 10% of your income as tithes. There are some people who actually already own a house, it's mortgage free, and it's very sufficient for them to live pretty comfortably in. And what happens? They end up getting more money into their lives. And what they do? They go and they buy a bigger house, a second luxury home, without even looking around to see who they can help with this excess money. Somebody might be close to them that they know who need help. Family, maybe a friend, maybe an associate at work, someone in your community. So they are missing out on their increase of wealth to increase their giving. You know, the Upanishad said, give plenty and abundantly. Now, getting more isn't meant for us to go and get more luxurious things. It is really meant for us to give more. So, why is it important to give plenty and abundantly? You see, the more you give, the more detached you become, and the freer you are. And the freer you are, the more peaceful you become. You're no longer caged and tied to things of the world, of the flesh. but you're more concerned about spiritual things of love, of kindness, of deeper care and concern for others, for your fellow human beings, and therefore, the more you will progress spiritually. There are many people within families, in families, it's so prevalent where you would see people would hold on to what they have and they would let others in the family suffer. And you would see it even when in debts, where they will take more for themselves and want their siblings to get less, and they're making their lives miserable and the other siblings' lives miserable. Now, this does not mean I want you to give away everything. Otherwise, you will end up being a burden to society and you could end up doing some wrong things just to get. And this will not be spiritually elevating. I will share with you some of my own personal experience in terms of giving abundantly, giving plenty, even when you have little. And I was actually on the receiving end. As kids, I remember my mom's sister. She did so much for us as children. She had, I believe, if I did the count right, 7 children of her own. And we would go and spend holidays with her and our cousins. And my aunt would do so much for us and gave to us very lovingly. She embraced us. It wasn't a burden for her. She took us in with love. We also experienced this with my dad's best friend and his wife, whom we call Tanti and Uncle. And remember, they weren't relatives. And Tanti actually had 7 children of her own. And this is back in the little island of Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean. And during our summer vacation, she already had 7 children of her own, if I did that count right again. And she would take us 4 children who weren't her family, her husband's friends' family, and bring us in and embrace us and treat us like her own. And it was always a joy to be there. We were never miserable. We had fun with her children, whom we felt were like cousins to us. And there was a lot of love and care and attention given to us. Whatever she fed her children, she fed us. So we never received a worse. We got the equal. And even my best friend, Ingrid from childhood, her mom, whom I call Auntie Sybil, and her and Uncle Aldrin, they treated me like family. And they gave so much to me. Even up till now, Auntie Sybil, when I call her, she would say, "Oh, my daughter from Canada is calling me." And one of the things we experienced as children growing up in a little island is that when you call people who are not your family, auntie and uncle, it makes you develop this sense of family and care and love for one another. And so for me, whatever I received back then, maybe I took it for granted simply because it wasn't seen as something extraordinary. It was just seen as a normal way of life. So I feel very blessed to have received that. And I think I only came to appreciate it today because of the society, what it is today. It is so very different. We must come to this point in our lives where all of us improve in how we give so that our giving actually seems very normal, not something extraordinary. Then we know that as a society, as a world, we're all evolving spiritually. Gone are the days when we see this, and I believe it is so important for us to bring it back so it becomes a natural part of who we are. What we're seeing today is that we all want to protect our little homes, our little spaces, our lives, what we have. And yes, we have to be careful of whom we invite into our lives, but it must never make us selfish and uncaring and insensitive to those who need. The Upanishads also continue to say to give with the fear that you haven't given enough. it is not enough, whatever you give. And why do they say that? Because this is what will help you to give abundantly and more freely and become more and more detached. And if you do not have more things to give, at least give more respect. Give kind words and encouragement. All of these are spiritual qualities to help you evolve consciously. And finally, the Upanishad says, give with the knowledge of whom you are giving and why you are giving. This is to ensure that you are not enabling and engaging in bad karma and bad karmic consequences, such as where there is crime, where whatever you give is being used for crime, for drugs, to uphold bad addictions, when it will set you back spiritually, even if you're not aware of it. Many people give without considering what they're giving and to whom they're giving. And I'm going to give you an example. In my culture, in the Indian culture, for us, everything is about we must feed. That's part of our seva, our service. We always feed people. Now, if you are giving to me, who can cook, who love to cook my own food, and you feel you're serving me by giving me food, and therefore I should be grateful, but that's not what I want to need. And instead, what I need from you is respect, and learn to speak to me with love and in a good way, then your giving is going down the drain. So we have to really stop and look at it. Look at what we're giving, how we're giving, and how it's benefiting people. Do not taint your giving by merely giving. I want you to give as though it's acts of loving and consideration for the need of whom you are giving. To add to what the Upanishads and the Bible teach us about how to give, I would say, be concerned about how you give, not how others are not giving. Your giving is between you and God and your spiritual evolution. If you want others to give and help, consider these factors. You do not know how they may be restricted and limited due to certain influences in their lives, such as their spouse. And what these people may be trying to do is preserve their marriage by not helping in the way you need them to or want them to, as their spouse may be against it. You might be doing all the giving and helping because you find it easier not to ask for help from others, for them to step up and help. And what it ends up happening is that it ends up being harder for you. You can get others to do good by helping, but not by beating them down and telling them off, but by encouraging them and giving them the opportunity to help. If you beat them down and get angry with them, you will just simply dilute your giving. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because this tends to happen very often in families, especially when giving and helping the elders. You tend to see one person being the dominant giver. And I know I've seen it in my own family, and I am at floor. I would say very openly, I have been at fault, and I didn't do enough in my case to help. Not because I didn't want to, but because I was living elsewhere, so far away. And I did help, but not enough, in my opinion. It may be too late with regard to my parents and helping because they're no longer here, but I hope it is not too late for you, and you can make a positive difference in the way you give. We can all give in different ways, depending upon our means and disposition. You see, some may give food and water, clothes and shelter, and these are very important ways to give because they're basic necessities for us in life. Anyone who receives this, their life can be improved because once you have a full stomach, and you have a shelter over your head, a roof over your head, and you don't have to worry about losing it the next day. Am I going to lose my home? Can I pay to keep this house or this apartment? Then what happens? You feel a little more secure, and you can actually help yourself to improve your life. So, this is a good way to help others. Some may be in a position to provide tools and skill sets and guidance to help others so that they can maintain some dignity and self respect through self sufficiency. Some may be in a position to give knowledge and wisdom. Others may provide respect and understanding. A kind ear may be offered to people so that they may feel supported. You see, we don't all have to give in the same way, but always 100% of the times we must give with the same deep sincerity and purity for good karma, for our spiritual progress, and for us to evolve consciously. The Holy Bible says in 1 Corinthians 13, and I'm going to share it with you because it's a good thing it says here. It's a very good example to follow. It says here, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am becoming as sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. In other words, all I'm doing is making noise. And though I have the gift of prophecy and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, and I have not charity, in other words, I have not love, I have nothing. In the Bible, charity and love are interchangeable. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, and though I give my body to be burned and have not charity, it profiteth me not. In other words, I can give charity. I can give all the food I want to people, to the poor, but I don't give it sincerely, with love. It means nothing. It means nothing for me in terms of my spiritual progress and evolution. It goes on to say that charity never fails, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it could all vanish away. And now abideth faith, hope, and charity, or love. And the greatest of these is charity, is love. Okay, so always remember that. It's a wonderful verse in the Bible. Charity is love, and therefore should begin at home, because that is where love begins. And I was recipient of that type of love just from my sister, in terms of how she stepped up and helped and gave to us. And you can read chapter 98 of my book. It's a great example, because when we learn to start giving lovingly from home, from within our own families, then it makes us become a bit more qualified to give globally, which is what my sister does now, or to give, extend that giving outward into your community. And this has been a great example in my life. And I hope I can improve and become a better giver, a more loving giver, considerate and kind and sincere giver, where it comes naturally and spontaneously out of me. And I hope it happens for you too. Now, I hope my sister doesn't listen to this, because she is not going to be pleased. I used her as an example. She doesn't ever like being put on a pedestal. So, charity, giving, and serving others is a portal to your conscious evolution by how lovingly and freely you give. And the greatest service to humanity and to yourself is for you to transform and grow spiritually and evolve consciously. So serve others well, and you will end up serving yourself well too, spiritually. I thank everyone. I'm using this opportunity to thank everyone who have served me well in all aspects of my life. I appreciate that immensely. So I encourage you now to go out into the world and allow the Holy Spirit to work beautifully in you so that you could give sincerely to improve humanity's experience here on earth. Bring some ease and comfort into people's lives, help eliminate suffering, add joy and a spark of light, infuse clarity and insight to bring peace, encourage and inspire, uplift and heal. Give freely with peace in your soul. When you give freely, you'll be adding value to people's lives, and then you become a true blessing to them, and you will end up being blessed too. What a worthy way to live and be.